on Game Plan.
This will take a while to get over, but at some point it'll pass. It'll take a little bit of time.
It's the rematch the Saints have been waiting 9 months for.
Looking, throwing into the end zone. Alvin Kamara. Touchdown, Saints!
We're previewing the matchup of Super Bowl hopefuls. Plus,
I'm just going with it, and I'm just going to do whatever I can to make this a better ball team.
The Black and Gold confirmed their high hopes for the season with a bold move for Eli Apple. Find out what the expectations are for the former 10th overall pick. It's all on Game Plan, starting right now.
From Fox 8 Sports, this is Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers, home of the best-selling truck 41 years straight.
For win number 5, the Saints ventured into a place that Drew Brees had never won to make it 6. They'll have to go to the stadium they began and ended their season last year.
The meat of the schedule has felt like a buffet to the Saints thus far. They've enjoyed bellying up to the table, and the challenge they're going to face over the next 4 weeks will all feel the same, contending teams that have the Saints' ultimate goal. As the Saints, it all begins with a return to the city where last season ended. And it's clear, this story, Sean, needs a much happier ending.
It's another game. I got anything about this week?
I mean, we've already talked about it. This is not a revenge game. There's not, listen, it's a different season. These are new teams. Even though there's a lot of similar personnel, it's a new season. It's a new team. It's a new mindset. So, listen, it's a very good opponent that we're playing on Sunday Night Football at their place. It's a tough environment. Tough place to play. We understand we're going to need our best game, our best execution to win.
This Viking team was a game away from the Super Bowl last season, and in some ways, Sean, they got better.
They stand atop their division for a reason, Juan, and they have the full attention of your New Orleans Saints. Oh, the Minnesota Vikings, a team that, for whatever reason, has always given the Saints fits.
Caught at the goal line, touchdown. That's the tight end, Kyle Rudolph.
This year, the Vikings have a new man running the offense, and Kirk Cousins, with his 70% completion percentage and 14 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, has been exactly what the Vikings paid him to be.
I would say, look, Kirk's a guy that plays with a lot of confidence. He's gotten the ball down the field, maybe a little bit more than last year. There's a handful of changes. Obviously, the coordinator, Pat now is the head coach in New York. Tony Sparano, their line coach, passed away in the offseason, and you have a new quarterback. So you get some different things maybe than you saw from last year's team, and yet you're still getting a team that's been real efficient.
Vikings receivers are dynamic. Stephon Diggs has 48 receptions, while Adam Thielen is already closing in on 1,000 yards. He leads the league with 822.
We had a chance to coach Adam at the Pro Bowl, and I think you've got a great skill set, someone who's got exceptional transition, great route savvy, can run, and you just see him getting better and better.
Defensively, the Vikings are where they've usually been, among the league's best. They lead the league in third down percentage, and former LSU Tiger Danielle Hunter is second in the NFL with 7.5 sacks.
They stress your front a couple different ways. They stress your front when they walk two guys up in the A gaps or the B gaps, and they thin you out as an offensive line, and the running back's got to be involved in the protection. The 5 offensive linemen got to be involved. And so one of the challenges, if you're not careful, especially when you're there, playing there with the crowd noise, is you're just a half count late off the snap, and they're on an edge already. Those two things aren't good news.
They're so consistent. They're really good with the scheme that they run. Mike Zimmer does a great job with those guys. They got great players too. Just across the board. You got 7 or 8 Pro Bowlers on that defense. So obviously they're very talented. They play very well together. Just an extremely solid defense.
The Vikings are dealing with some significant injuries. Anthony Barr and Dalvin Cook did not practice today, Juan, so they're a little banged up.
It's really the mark of a quality football team when they're still winning football games through injuries, and they've won their last 3 games to take the lead in that NFC North. But about 36 hours ago, the Saints made a move to fix what's broken in their secondary, bringing aboard cornerback Eli Apple. They gave up a couple of future draft picks to get the former 10th overall pick in 2016, but the franchise feels that he's worth the risk risk, especially since the one glaring weakness in the secondary is on the corner opposite of Marshawn Lattimore. It's true that Apple hasn't lived up to his lofty draft status, but even he expects that to change now that he's playing for a contender.
You could tell they're a sound football team, and everybody on the field, and just everybody seems excited just when they were making plays, and it's just a lot of juice around here, you know what I mean? Just a lot of excitement.
Obviously, in the evaluation process coming out of college, we were real familiar with them. I think we've got a pretty good handle on the players that have come out of there, and having a chance to visit once the draft's taken place about a player. It's not uncommon that we would visit with certain players on our roster about guys they might have played with in college or maybe with prior to another NFL team. So we felt good on the information. We like the skill set, and we're excited to work with him. He got in last night.
So very excited. It's a great organization here, a lot of great players too, so just can't wait to come and contribute.
I'm a firm believer that a change of scenery can be just what a player needs to bring out the best in this game, and for Apple, becoming a Saint could be just what he needs to jumpstart his career. Changing sceneries, Giants are 1-6. That's a toxic place to be right now.
Yeah, and you go from New York, the biggest media market in the country, to New Orleans, one of the smaller media markets in the country. Certainly could help his psyche. Still to come for the Saints. Who was that number 85 making plays with the black and gold against the Ravens? Up next, a film breakdown of Dan Arnold.
You're watching Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers, home of the best-selling truck 41 years straight.
Sunday's win over the Ravens saw the emergence of a player that you, Sean, you were high on during training camp.
Yes, sir. His name is Dan Arnold, who played 11 snaps and really took advantage of his opportunity. Arnold's first catch came in the second quarter. On the play, the Saints are in their 3 tight end set. Arnold goes in motion and cracks down on the defender to block. Then he hits the flat. Drew Brees makes the blitzer miss and hits him. Arnold runs for the first down. Arnold showed good awareness to sell the block, then shoot to the flat where he was wide open. His second and final catch was a big one. Again, the Saints are in their 3 tight end set. Ben Watson is lined up on the inside. Arnold is lined up next to him, and Josh Hill is on the outside. Arnold hits the slot fade. Notice the space between he and the defender. Still, Arnold's long stride is able to make up the distance, and he gets open at the top of his route. He gets away with a slight push-off and makes the catch. That was not the only time Arnold ran that route. Earlier in the second quarter, he ran it as well and was actually open, but Brees elected to go to Michael Thomas, who was running the same route on the opposite side. What became apparent from a route-running standpoint is Sean Payton sees Arnold as a tight end that can effectively work the intermediate routes between 10 and 20 yards downfield. Here he is running a skinny post to the middle of the field. Now, from a blocking standpoint, Arnold was okay when he was asked to do so. This is him on a Taysom Hill zone read, making a block on the Ravens defender. Later in the fourth, lined up in the flex position to the right, Arnold makes a backside block on the defender. Now, my prediction is you will see more of Dan Arnold on the field for the Saints. He has the potential to fill the role this offense has not had in a very long time.
I think Sean Payton and Drew Brees are okay with having another weapon.
I think so.
Dan Arnold might be the guy. When it comes to players being on the Vikings radar, though, everyone on the Saints roster is right behind Drew Brees. The Vikes, like every other NFL team, see Brees as the head of the snake. And last season, their defense had some success against slowing him down last year, in the first half at least. But Brees caught fire in the second half, leading the Saints back to the brink of a playoff victory, only to watch it get snatched away on the game's final play. So what did the Vikings learn from their near mishap that they can't take any time off against number 9?
I think as the game goes on, he gets a much better feel of what the defense is trying to do throughout the course of the ball game with him. And, you know, a guy like him who's seen everything, he sees everything anyway. But, I mean, you know, he's seen so many different looks that he can kind of decipher things quickly on the move. I think that's part of it. And then, you know, he's got good players, too. I mean, Michael Thomas is good. Kamara's good. Ingram's good. They got a lot of good players.
If you remember, the Saints followed the same script in the playoffs that they had in the regular season opener against the Vikings. Struggle in the first half, but rally and come back in the second.
And we all know U.S. Bank Stadium is a difficult place to win, especially one when you fall behind early.
You're right. Can't do that, Sean. And Drew Brees compared it to the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, saying that the fans make a huge difference. He said the key for his team is to be on point and remain on point and the same page. If they can do that in U.S. Bank Stadium, they have a chance to win the game.
The good news is they're used to that stadium. They played there 3 times in the last 13 months.
Crazy.
Still to come, the arrival of Eli Apple. Will it help or hurt the Saints? We'll discuss on NOLA.com. The Times-Picayune's Josh Katzenstein in studio next.
You're watching Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers. Home of the best-selling truck 41 years straight.
Well, he's a dangerous quarterback, and he's has a lot of success against the Saints team. You go back and you look at last year, and so just a different uniform right now. But for the Saints, they have to be able to slow Thielen down. The Vikings have not run the football well. Dalvin Cook has been hurt. Murray had a nice game yesterday. The offensive line is banged up. They've got a lot of players, defensively as well, banged up. But for the Saints, take care of your business and just go play ball.
Deuce will have reaction Sunday night on the final play. Come Monday, you can catch Deuce at 8 a.m., 5 p.m., and 10:35. All of that right here on Fox 8. Always nice to have with us Josh Katzenstein from NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune. Kirk Cousins getting paid like a top 5 quarterback, but is he a top 5 quarterback?
I don't think so, but he plays like it at times, and that's what the Saints have to worry about on Sunday. I mean, he played like a top 5 quarterback in that game where the Saints had to have their big comeback against Washington last year. They really just came up with a couple big stops late, and that was the only reason they had a chance to win that game. Obviously, some heroics by Drew Brees were involved, but I think he's a guy that's just hot and cold. I mean, there are some games where he doesn't really give you a chance, but then there are other games where he can just carry you to victory. And in Washington, he didn't have the level of receivers that he has in Minnesota. So most of the games so far this year, he has played close to that level.
Completely agree. He's got elite traits. He's just inconsistent with those traits at times. But I will say, top 5 quarterback money, it's just a good time to be a quarterback, especially a free agent quarterback, because the next guy who's a competent quarterback is going to top that amount, top the Aaron Rodgers amount. We know how this goes. So why he's getting paid like a top 5 quarterback is just he took advantage of a good moment in time. But I think he's has elite traits, but not always elite because he battles consistency.
But he's been very good against the Saints, though, recently, though. That's what, I guess, scares Sean Payton him a little bit.
I actually go back to not last year's game, but the 2015 game where Rob Ryan got fired after the game, where, I mean, he just lit up the Saints. Now, that team was way worse than this team in 2018, but it goes to show you when he gets hot, you know, he can throw all parts of the field, short, intermediate, and especially the deep ball. He can really push the ball downfield.
And wasn't it a year or two before that RG3 dominated the Saints? I think part of the reason a lot of quarterbacks we see having success against the Saints in recent games is because they went against bad defenses in those games, because the Saints secondary was among the worst in the league. Their pass defense was among the worst in the league. And I think last year, with how the Saints had been playing, it was a little fluky the way that Washington game went. But certainly, if we see the Saints have the same secondary struggles that they've had at times this year, Kirk Cousins is the kind of guy who can exploit it.
So we wonder about the arrival of Eli Apple at this point in time of the season. He gives the team maybe a better option opposite of Marshawn Lattimore, and gives them a better balance, I guess, defensively going against teams that have multiple weapons like the Vikings will have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the rest of the season we'll see that be the case, because he should be an upgrade over Ken Crawley, but I'm not sure we'll get to see that on Sunday against the Vikings. 3 days is typically not enough for a guy to learn a new defensive scheme, get adjusted to all the new players that he's going to be on the field with. And I think, I would be a little surprised if he's out there. He might be active, in case of emergency, and maybe the Saints will really simplify it so that he can just go man up. And against receivers like Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, you might want to just go man-to-man on both of those guys, but I just think it's pretty unlikely we see him Sunday.
Look, he's an upgrade over King Crawley, and with King Crawley, we're still able to manage to get to 5-1. So if he is the difference, right, in getting from, say, whatever your record would be to maybe get to the Super Bowl, then obviously the deal was worth it. I think his ceiling is probably a very good number 2 cornerback in the NFL. That's what the Saints would ask him to be. I will say, though, he had locker room issues in New York. New York is a different market. It's a tricky market. if it doesn't work out for him here with all his Ohio State buddies, it's not going to ever work out for him. So he's got motivation to be successful both on the field and in the locker room.
You're right. One of the challenges for the Saints this Sunday is one of the things they've struggled with the last year and a half, third down conversions. The Vikings are the best team in the league at stopping third down. That's going to be a huge emphasis this weekend.
Yeah, I think so. And, Mike Zimmer was saying today that, he doesn't really have a good explanation for it. They just practice third downs and they execute. Yeah. And I think it just comes down to good coaching and good talent across the field, on both sides for the Vikings. I think, the Saints are definitely doing better on third downs than they were last year offensively, but it's still an area where they need to improve. And I don't think they necessarily want to, in as hostile an environment as Minnesota is. It's going to be much louder than it was in Baltimore. I don't think they want to be going for it on fourth down 5 times.
I'm curious how aggressive they would be on fourth down, but I will say this. If they only convert 23% of their third downs Sunday night, the Saints are not winning that game. So third down will be huge in Minnesota Sunday.
Peyton doesn't believe, at least he says he doesn't believe in revenge games from one year to the next. Do you believe this game is the Saints have circled on their calendar?
Yeah, I do. I think, yes, they do. Yeah. We talked to Marcus Williams today. He begrudgingly answered a question. It was just another game, Got a little snippy like we thought he would. But come on, they know where this season ended. They know how crazy of an ending that it was. Last week they downplayed we've never beat the Baltimore angle.
But it was obviously a big deal.
And then after the game, they all talked about how they wanted to win the game for Drew because they'd never beaten Baltimore. So absolutely, this game's in the circle.
Vengeance is like one of the quintessential human desires.
Of course. Right.
So
especially in sports.
Especially in sports. Now, I understand why they're downplaying it. Mark Ingram even said that nobody on the coaching staff has addressed or brought up the last year's game because they don't want to get these guys overhyped because they already know that it's an emotional game because everyone wants revenge for that. So they can say that it's not a revenge game, and certainly, after the game, win or lose, they're going to say that, we were just approaching it like another game. But we all know that they have it circled. The Vikings probably have it circled. Every fan on both sides has it circled. I mean, this is a huge game.
Let's finish with this because we're in week 8 right now, and I would imagine the Saints are looking at this game and also next week's against the Rams as more than just, okay, let's beat these teams to kind of measure ourselves up. But 9 weeks down the line, we're talking about seeding, and these are two teams that you may be fighting for one of those top seeds against.
Yeah, these are two of the biggest games of the year, and then, a couple weeks after that, they get the Eagles, and obviously the Eagles haven't been playing as well as most people expected, but certainly I think, the Saints know what these games mean, and they always say, it's the biggest game because it's the next game and all that stuff. But everyone knows that the Rams are the front runner in the NFC, so the Saints know that they're going to have to beat them if they want a shot at the #1 seed. They know they have to beat the Vikings to improve their chances at home field advantage. So, they might not say those things, but certainly everyone is aware.
They got to win because they're only got a game lead in the NFC South as well. They're one game ahead over Carolina. Atlanta looks like they're playing a little bit better. Tampa as well. Carolina's playing, obviously, they're nipping at their heels. So seeding is one thing, but they have to win. If they want to, I know they want to win the NFC South first. So they're only a game ahead, so they got to keep winning.
You're right about that. We're going to leave it there with Josh Katz's team from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Juan.
Coming up, it's the halfway point for fantasy football owners, and Chris Hagan is giving out grades. Find out who is overachieving and who is failing. Next.
Game Plan is sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers. You're watching Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers, home of the best-selling truck 41 years straight.
Time now for keys to the game, and turnovers are always important, but this year these teams have been defined by their turnover differentials. In games the Saints have taken more than they've given, they've won by a combined 39 points. When they have a negative differential, they've been a combined -2 on the scoreboard. Makes sense. The Vikings' difference is even more substantial, winning by 30 points when they're in the black, losing by nearly the same total when they're in the red. In fantasy football, it's all about production. And sometimes the players you think will produce end up falling short.
While others you probably didn't expect have burst onto the scene. Chris Hagan now with who's up and who's down so far this season in this week's Extra Point.
7 weeks in, we've passed the halfway mark of the fantasy football season, and obviously a lot has changed since the start of the year. Time to examine some of the biggest rising and falling stock of the group. At quarterback, The best value picks and guys who should be weekly starters include Phillip Rivers and Andrew Luck. They went late in most drafts, but have easily been two of the most reliable plays every single week. Luck especially picked up where he left off in an offense that requires a very high volume of throws to win, and it's only been getting better each week. At running back, it's all about who plays in the best offense. Melvin Gordon, Kareem Hunt, James Conner, Alvin Kamara, and Todd Gurley pace the pack. While it's no surprise to see these names up there, it's notable that guys like Ezekiel Elliott and David Johnson, once weekly locks for big numbers, haven't seen the same production. Johnson especially has tumbled. Hopefully a change at offensive coordinator brings a much-needed improvement. As for running backs on the rise in the second half of the year, check out Tariq Cohen, who's finally found his place in the Bears' passing game, or Detroit's Kerryon Johnson, who seems like a bona fide bell cow, even if LeGarrette Blount is still stealing a few goal line carries. And in Cleveland, Nick Chubb should be pretty exclusively the man on early downs. At receiver, if you had Josh Gordon and stuck with him, you're reaping the reward for your patience. But if you are still waiting on Corey Davis to come around, it's time to let it go. In Denver, Emmanuel Sanders, another late pick, has become a top 10 receiver and a must-start every week. The same can be said for Devin Funchess, who seems to be benefiting from a much-improved Panthers passing game. But the most peculiar case is Amari Cooper. At one point, he was the Raiders' top option and a frequent, reliable target of Derek Carr. Now headed to the Cowboys for a first-round pick, they're hoping they can bring that production back to life. If he does have a resurgence, I believe he has top 20 wide receiver potential and an offense in desperate need of a passing game. Finally, at tight end, Atlanta's Austin Hooper should certainly be rostered in every league and considered a starter given how shallow that position is. But the biggest up-and-comer has to be Trey Burton in Chicago. He was pegged in August as a potential breakout player with a low cost, and he's become one of Mitchell Trubisky's favorite targets. Rob Gronkowski owners, however, this is the downside of taking a tight end in the second round. If you're looking for replacements, even short-term, that may still be available as potential backups, check out Pittsburgh's Vance McDonald. Reporting for Game Plan, I'm Chris Hagan.
We'll have highlights and reaction to the Saints and Vikings on the Final Play Sunday night. You'll also want to tune in to hear Deuce McAllister's thoughts on the game, as well as get a preview of LSU and Alabama showdown and a look at Week 2 for the red-hot Pelicans. Plus, see how Regis Rougarou Prograis fared in his Saturday night fight on the lakefront.
And of course, you can always get in touch with us using the Final Word feature on the Final Play app. That will do it for us tonight. Thank you for watching Game Plan, and thanks to everyone here at Fox 8 for their contributions. Our next newscast is at 4:30 in the morning. Good night.
Auf Wiedersehen.
From Fox 8 Sports, this has been Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers, home of the best-selling truck 41 years straight.